Hey everyone, this is Derrick Broze with the Conscious Resistance Network, and today I'm bringing you another exciting and important interview with another inspiring artist, somebody I've been listening to for over a decade, and I just always feel so honored I get to connect with and chat with the people who inspire me musically, and not just musically, but with their character, with their being, with their soul. And of course, today I'm talking about Nattali Rize, who, for those of you who've been following for a long time, you might remember 10 years ago, all the way back in September 2015, we actually connected in person in LA at the United We Stand Fest and got to chat a little bit. But now we're going to reconnect because Nattali is coming to Mexico for the People's Reset 2026 in just 6 weeks. So I'm so excited to chat with her today. Nattali, thank you so much for making time to talk with me.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for keeping up with me all these years. I can't believe it's been 10 years since we first met. That's amazing.
Yeah, I think that to me is one of the most fun experiences as my work as an activist, as an independent journalist, is going to events, connecting with people like yourself. And then, of course, we've seen each other a few different times over the years. And now getting to bring you down to where I'm living in Mexico and really experience the community we've built. I'm so excited to have you here and just to jam with you some more in person. So thank you for being a part of what we're doing here and for all the things that you're doing.
Absolutely. And you know what? I love to see the conscious community just continue to grow and flourish in all parts of the world and planets. And I love what you guys are doing and that you're so dedicated to continuing the mission and keeping the word, out there, and for being persistent in getting me to come to Mexico, because we've been trying for a few years and this time it lined up perfectly. So I'm really excited to be coming and be a part, not just perform, but I'm excited to just be there on the ground, and yes, witness and share and learn. I'm ready to learn. It's like we're not growing unless we're learning, and that's what it feels like your gathering is about, but also about bringing together like minds to amplify what we know and to amplify the energy around real change and sustainable shifts and conscious living and life and all the goodness. So big up yourself.
Yeah, thank you. We're so excited. Honestly, I can tell you for sure you're definitely going to be making some dreams come true by being a part of our event. We've had more than a few people, request that you come out. And, I was right before we're recording this, I was just listening to the interview we did 10 years ago. I wanted to kind of see what we chatted about back then. And it's interesting to see kind of both of our evolution from what you were doing then and what I was doing then and where we're at now. And also to see what has stayed the same, what things that both of us, I think, care about. Obviously, you're continuing to make music. You just put out a new album recently, and you're continuing to speak out about the causes that you care about. So I wanted to give, our audience who doesn't know about you yet, and those who are coming to the People's Reset and haven't got to hear your music, just a little bit of a taste of who Nattali is behind the music, because obviously the music speaks for itself, and we're going to play a music video at the end of this interview. But yeah, I wanted to give everybody just a chance to catch up with you, and I will put the original interview we did 10 years ago in the show notes. I'm going to try not to ask the same questions again if you want to get to
look at I don't remember what they were.
Well, let's start with the basics. So for people who haven't heard you or seen you, again, I asked you this before, but I know it's important people get to know your story. Like, tell us a little bit about who Nattali Rize is and your musical journey, and then I definitely want to talk more about some of the issues of the day and the things you care about.
Mm-hmm. So, I guess my musical journey starts in the house. Growing up, my mother has impeccable taste in music, and shared that with me and my sisters growing up, and really diverse taste in music, but reggae music really resonated with me. And at first it wasn't necessarily because I was so young, it wasn't necessarily because I understood the lyrical content or what they were singing about. It was just the vibe and the energy and the positiveness of the sound. And then as I grew up and became aware of what the lyrics were about, I fell in love with it on a whole nother level. And, my mother as a community worker, working with Indigenous people in Australia and the Pacific community, and always representing and showing up for minorities and people of color, was, that awareness of injustice and racism was very, it was a part of my childhood. And so that music was like a soundtrack for that. And so artists that she loved became artists that I loved, and that really informed a lot of who I became as a musician, who I am becoming as a musician. Not just your reggae greats like Bob Marley, of course, Jimmy Cliff, Judy Moat, who I got to actually collaborate with on my new album, but also artists like Santana and Louis Armstrong and Ella Fitzgerald. So this very rich tapestry of soul music, essentially, and music for the people. So that's what I grew up to, and that is really, a part of who I am. That's transformed into my Australian band, Blue King Brown, who are well known for doing a lot of singing songs for the people, And for me, that continued on when I moved to Jamaica and I started my Nattali Rize project. Of course, it's just a continuation of these things. And for me, it's always been, music is not really entertaining. It's not for entertainment purposes. It can be entertaining, but it's really for a much deeper connection to self and to each other and to the real energy and spirit of one love, and being able to create a space in the moment with sound that can harness real shifts in consciousness, in vibration on a cellular level, and therefore have a positive impact and onflow into people's lives. Because for me, seeing the world that we live in and the systems that are placed on top of people to keep them down is like seeing that. For me, a way to change that is to get inside every heart and mind with a consciousness level. Because when you start to resonate at higher frequencies, as you know, you tolerate less bullshit and you actually just see it for what it is. A lot of the time this very elaborate illusion has been covering our senses and our awareness, and as music is one of the many things that we use to lift the veil on the illusion and to be able to see clearly. And so for me, it's just being a part of the continuation of that mission that has already been in place by so many other musicians before me and so many other artists, and to just stand up and be a part of it.
I love it. And, not only do you have these kind of diverse musical interests and inspirations that you bring into it, but you also kind of have your roots in multiple different places. You mentioned Jamaica, of course, Australia. Could you speak a little bit to that? Like, not necessarily just your heritage per se, but just your travels and how that has influenced what you bring to the table musically.
Yeah, definitely. Traveling is a human right. And for me, it's a massive part of what I love to do. And as a touring musician, you have to love it, because if you don't love it, you're not going to have a very good time, because it's long drives, small spaces, not much sleep, like you get to visit places, but sometimes very briefly. Like literally, I've been to most cities in the US, but I may have only seen the backstage room and the street that we perform on, you know what I mean? So there's definitely, you have to love it to do what we do. But in terms of where I like actually stop, yeah, like Jamaica definitely has a massive influence on me as a musician, as I said, from a little girl and growing up, and just the consciousness in the community over there, and Rastafari consciousness, and just being able to be in Jamaica and learn and see and create music with people who are, on the same level as me, and just, par with people in that way is my vibe. I love it. In Australia, there's some incredible communities here who are doing some amazing work. This is where I met a lot of the West Papuan community. Of course, I grew up with, the indigenous community. So, we get to tap in and the cultures. Australia is a very multicultural place too. It has its problems like everywhere, but there's such a great multicultural community here. And so, you get to learn and a lot about, as someone who takes interest in what's happening geographically in the area, then, you get to tap into certain communities. And as you find your tribe, you find your people, you find who you're supposed to collaborate with. And, that might not be forever, but it's for, a period of time. And with the West Papuan community, well, for me, that's a forever connection, because I have worked with West Papuans in my band and been welcomed into their family, and to just learn about what's happening over there. To me, there's no option other than to speak out about that. So that's something I will always do, and I'll always give my voice and my presence where it's needed like that, because music is also about representing what's happening at a certain time. While I'm a musician that is alive in this time, I want to be part of the representation of what is happening to people, and as well as a driving force to keep us moving forward to what could be our reality. So, yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned West Papua there, and this is something we talked about 10 years ago. And unfortunately, this is one of the conflicts and the issues that continues to this day. And it also is something you speak out about pretty regularly. And I've noticed that in the last couple of weeks, West Papua was in the news again because of recent conflicts. I know it's been ongoing, but it seems like there's been a kind of a spike in these conflicts. Could you speak to a little bit about the importance of as somebody being in Australia and the proximity to West Papua? You sort of touched on it there, that as a musician you want to give voice to this, but could you speak to that a little more specifically about why it's important to you, and maybe for those who have no idea, don't really know about that part of the world and that conflict, just anything you want to share on that?
Yeah, so West Papua is the western half of the island of New Guinea. So you have Papua New Guinea, and which was colonized by the British, and then they got their independence. And then you have West Papua, which was colonized by the Dutch originally. The Dutch had set them up to be an independent nation in 1961. They were in transition into being an independent nation. So they were getting their sovereignty back from Dutch colonization. They had a parliament set up in place. They had their own national flag and everything. And after that, 1st of December in 1961, they raised the flag of an independent West Papua for the first time. Shortly after that, I think within months, maybe less, Indonesia invaded. They invaded West Papua with military, paratroops, soldiers dropping out of the sky, and they have since been the colonial force there, occupying West Papua and claiming it as part of Indonesia. If you look at Indonesian culture, language, and historical heritage, and you look at West Papua, you can see that they're very different. Papuans are Melanesian, not Indonesian. They are on the same island as Papua New Guinea, as their Papua New Guinean brothers and sisters. And this is only about 250 kilometers north of Australia. So that's kind of in a nutshell, what happened, and what has continued to happen is Indonesia continues to occupy West Papua because it has the biggest copper mine in the world, the second largest gold mine in the world. And it's all got to do with resources. They're not just occupying it either. They have done and are doing some of the most brutal, horrific things I have ever heard of any human doing to another human being, and to women and children, and very methodical, well-planned attacks on the Papuan way of life, on Papuan people, even to the point where it's illegal to raise the West Papuan flag. You can be put in prison for 16 years just for raising the flag. So to speak out, no, press is not allowed in there. You can't even, human rights monitors can't get in. So it's this closed type thing, all based around people's interest in the mining. Of course, it's the US and Australia and Indonesia, probably some others. But to speak out about West Papua in West Papua can get you killed. Like, it's serious. So to be on the outside West Papua, so close, and to have West Papuan close friends, family, and to hear about what's happening to their family is just, there is no option other to speak out about it. And it is a really, it's one of the genocides that is really unknown in the world. So slowly but surely, West Papuans are so resilient, and they're so amazing. They're just the friendliest, nicest, welcoming people, and you just can't imagine that this is happening to them, and that it can continue. So, you know, the struggle continues, and Indonesia continues to be brutally oppressive anytime there's any uprising. And, you know, there's always so much going on over there, and I just try to keep my finger on the pulse and just be a voice and support whenever I can.
Yeah, absolutely. And I saw that you'd posted about it on Instagram. I guess it was on December 1st, which happens to be my birthday, and so that's when you were kind of raising awareness about. Unfortunately, it shares the date with this event. And I wanted to share for my audience who might be aware, this is a website I follow called Drop Site News, and they reported this just a few weeks back. Guerrilla fighters in West Papua are facing extermination by Indonesia's high-tech forces. West Papua National Liberation Army has resisted the counterinsurgency in the Star Mountains for decades. And they mention how, you mentioned like Indonesia, of course, Australia, the US, they also talk about how some of the weapons being used coming from a French weapons manufacturer and a Chinese manufacturer. So you can definitely see there's international interest at play here. I just wanted to, I'll put that in the show notes if anybody wants to learn more about that, because I do think, like you said, these are stories that don't necessarily get play, and especially in the US and other parts of the world where people just don't hear about these. And there's so many other struggles. Obviously, over the last 2 years, Gaza has got a lot of attention for good reason, that it should get the attention. But unfortunately, our world is filled with so many conflicts like this that it's hard to keep an eye on them. And obviously, we know the media sometimes doesn't want to put an eye on them because there are different interests who benefit from these conflicts. So I've always valued and continue to value and appreciate you giving voice to this. And I think that's one of the benefits of anybody, whether you're a musician, you're a journalist, you're an influencer, as they call it. Like, you have a voice, you have an opportunity, and why not use that to do something powerful with it?
Yeah.
And you also you said something a moment ago that brought up a question I did want to ask you. You said something about travel being a human right, and what that brought to my mind, I'm curious. The other big event that has happened since the last time we did an interview, of course, the last 5 years, was COVID-19, or what I often call COVID1984. And I don't know if you were in Australia when it was all going down, but Australia was obviously one of the worst places in terms of lockdowns and the really kind of authoritarian response by governments. And not only that, but I know many musicians, traveling touring musicians, it was hard to tour, obviously, when things are locked down, or musicians were getting like the vaccine pushed on them, or they had to perform shows where maybe the attendees were required to be vaccinated. What was your experience during COVID? I mean, anything you want to share about that? I don't want to push you to say anything you don't want to, but yeah, what are your thoughts on like how we saw the world respond to all that?
It's funny. I was talking about it not that long ago, because the after effects of COVID are still affecting everybody, like on every level. People who got the vaccine and are sick, people who got it and realized that they didn't really want to get it, but they were forced to get it. For me, I was in Jamaica, and it was definitely a wild ride. I'm so grateful that I was in Jamaica with my sister and Justice Joan, and we just we got creative. We started a Get Growing campaign, which was basically she was at the time the president, she was the head of one of the dispensaries over there, one of the ganja dispensaries, and she was coming up with innovative ways to keep people engaged, and also with everyone being in lockdown and seeing how quickly a flick of a switch can happen to remind us and empower us to grow our own food and to grow our own ganja if we're using it. And so we did a whole campaign around it called Get Growing, where we got people to sign up around the world to join different teams. I was one of the team leaders, and every week we shared different ways of growing food, different way, like how we were planting seeds in different ways and collecting seeds and doing all this. So it was very productive, and all the while, of course, you know, still trying to keep a connection with the international community, because for me it was like music is the healer, and what people needed and will always need in times of lockdown is to feel connected and to feel connection, because a lot of people struggle with mental health in those times. And as a musician, it's part of our job is to be in community. For me, I'm very focused on the live aspect of being a musician, of being physically present with people and physically sharing space and creating safe spaces for us to unify in the moment. So for me, as soon as I could get moving again, I did. And I went to, I stopped in Santa Cruz on my way back to Australia. And I did a show. I did a pop-up show. It was my first pop-up show. And I just posted it and sent people the address the day before the show. And it was a stripped back solo vibe in the backyard. And it was like 50 people. And for me, that was just a start, because venues were not up and running. There was nowhere to play. So I was like, well, I come from playing on the street. So we know how to make my own venue out of whatever, because the people have the resources. The people, if there's a will, there's a way. So we got a backyard, we invited people, and it was special. And for me, it was the beginning of taking back a certain sense of that independence on another level, because the music industry is a whole nother thing. And their whole push during that time was just as sick as everywhere else, you know, on a level. So for me, it was like, well, if you're not going to let us play there because we haven't got vaccines, then we're going to fucking make our own venues and do our own shows. And that's what we did. And I started doing my own event, Rise the People, off the back of that very first backyard gathering during COVID. For me also, it was a bit of an eye-opener as to where we were at as a global community. And honestly, it was disappointing. I was disappointed. Australia was one of the most hardcore, in particular the state of Victoria, which is, I used to live there in Melbourne, one of the biggest cities here. And I just couldn't believe what was happening, and also what people are willing to take. And it really felt like a testing ground for what they're wanting to do. So I was grateful to be in Jamaica. And then when I did reach Australia, I was in another part of the country where it wasn't as intense and we had access to the water, the rivers. But it really did make you see where we are at as a global community consciously. And it wasn't that awesome. But as we move forward, we still know that the potential is greater than, you know, the plans that are in place by people who brought hits just such as COVID 2020. So yeah, we're working on some other hits, you know?
Yeah. And, you know, I have some friends, some activist friends who are in Melbourne as well. And they were talking to me all about I think they called it the iron ring around the city, where they had the checkpoints and everything, and just how crazy it was. But I think the one positive that I take away is that, as you said, it was definitely disappointing kind of seeing how much of the world basically just complied. Fear is a strong motivator, as we know. But also, I think that for the people who were seeing through some of the garbage that we were being fed, it motivated people to say, you know what, like, I need to start growing my own food, like you were talking about, or I need to start, you know, I need to take my kids out of school, or I need to go get some land, or whatever it was they felt like inspired to do. they were motivated to like, let's do it now. And that's actually what led to us starting the event that is now the People's Reset. You know, originally we called it the Greater Reset. It was a response to the World Economic Forum calling the Great Reset in summer of 22. And that's, you know, we tried to say like, look, if they're going to have their plans and they're going to do these things, well, we're going to take that idea and we're going to meet ourselves. We'll get together and we'll have our own meetings, but we're going to talk about it from bottom up, grassroots style. And I think that's been the big takeaway for me, is that yes, there's a lot of people we know who will comply with whatever sort of propagandas are going on out there. And hopefully it inspires more people who can see through these things to take real concrete action. And yeah, I mean, as we start to wrap up, Nattali, tell me about your new album that you released just recently, Liberate. I'll put the links to everything. I see you got vinyl out. I got to get me one of those.
Yes. Yeah, I got to bring some to Mexico. I'll try and carry a couple down with me. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Liberate is my second album. It was about 7 years in the making, and it's a special one because for me it's 11 songs, and as I mentioned earlier, one of my favorite artists is actually the title track. Liberate features Judy Moat, and some people don't know who she is, but she's one of the I3s. She sang with Bob Marley and the Wailers, but she has her own catalog of wicked music, and her voice is just amazing to this day. And when I met her for the first time, we were meeting to record this song together. So it was like my inner child was just so screaming with joy and excitement. And we were meeting at Bob's studio at Tough Gong, and we recorded the song there and her part. And I was just blown away by how her vocal is still so impeccable and how generous and loving and kind she was and still is to me. And so, yeah, so Liberate, obviously the title really speaks about where I think we're headed and what it's like a task for us. We need to liberate ourselves and free our own minds. Nobody is coming to give us that type of liberation. It's something that we must all take back for ourselves, piece by piece by piece. And the more we do that, the more we bolster, but also amplify the energy of liberation in ourselves and therefore in our communities. And that is what this album is for me. And the intention behind every song and every beat and every strum and every lyric is that. So yeah, liberate your mind and free yourself.
I love it. Definitely everybody should check it out. I'll put the links to your website in the show notes. And of course, I encourage everybody to pick up a vinyl, pick up a CD, jam all the songs. And if you want to hear it in person for an unplugged set, again, Nattali is coming to Morelia, Mexico in just 6 weeks. The People's Reset 2026. The website is thepeoplesreset.org. It's going to be an amazing time, Nattali. I'm so grateful for you to come share what you have to offer and to come experience what we've been building and just connect with everybody. And we're going to go ahead and close with one of your music videos for Fear and Dread. So tell us about this before we sign out.
All right. Fear and Dread is a song about, when it feels like everything in the world gets heavy and we tend to get lost in our heads and we can sort of get this negative narrative on loop. Well, this song is about acknowledging those thoughts, but also just letting them go and remembering that not to get lost in a world of fear and dread and get lost in your head, because it's going to be all right.
I love it. Thank you so much, Nattali, for joining me. I really appreciate it. I'll see you very, very soon. Everybody else, enjoy the song. Check out Nattali. Check out her music, all of the music. Everything you've ever released, I think, is amazing. So I encourage you, check out Liberate. But go back through the whole, go through the whole archive of everything you've done. It's all worth seeing. And I'll put the show notes about West Papua and everything else we talked about, guys. Hope you will check her out, whether you can come to Mexico. Nattali, thank you for your time. Everybody else, as always, remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free. Peace.